Okay, welcome everyone to the digital elephant in the room. The digital elephant in the room is integration. I am Terry Cardin, your hostess for today, and I am thrilled to be here with you with Mani Jagadijan and Will Marling from Shuffle Labs. Today we're going to delve into a conversation that is being had in all different sectors of our industry and all different departments. You know, with the recent developments in the software as a service or SaaS industry, associations are constantly finding themselves, in data management standalones and more demands as we move toward a digital transformation. And we've just seen an overwhelming amount of interest in the challenges that we're faced around data and app integration. And so I'm really excited about today's webinar. But before we dig in too much about the webinar today, and before we get to know our speakers a little bit, I'll tell you a little bit about me. I'm Terry Cardin. I'm founder of ReviewMyAMS. And I have had the privilege to work alongside ShuffleExchange or Shuffle Labs for the last many months, as they are an annual supporter of ReviewMyAMS. And for those of you that may not have heard of ReviewMyAMS, it's a site, ReviewMyAMS.com, is designed just for association executives to give their end-user review on their association management software, and then they get to read reviews. And it's a beautiful arrangement because more than 700 association executives have shared their end-user insights on more than 45 different platforms. So it's a great resource for you, and I'm proud of the work that I've done and the fabulous partnerships that I've made with organizations, smart organizations such as Shuffle Labs. So enough about me. Let's talk a little bit about some housekeeping items. I think that the beeps that we're hearing are the participants that are joining us. Hopefully that'll peter off a little bit as we really start digging into the content of the webinar here. But you'll see that we are going to take the last 15 minutes or so for questions and answers. We feel like there's probably going to be a lot of questions that bubble up from this conversation today. So let's use the chat icon on the top right-hand portion of the meeting screen, the shared WebEx here. You'll see a chat icon, and then if you click that chat icon, it'll just drop you right into a chat that you can send to everyone. And I will do my best to monitor those questions that come in, or maybe some commentary that comes in. Feel free to drop it in that section as we're going along, so that you don't forget your question or your comment. And then at the end of the 30 minutes here, we'll dig into as many questions as we possibly can. So that's how we're going to handle questions and answering. Additionally, you should know that this webinar is being recorded today, so that will be accessible to you after today's webinar, so that you can forward it on to other staff or other colleagues of yours that may have an interest in this conversation as well. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to my co-hosts today, Mani Jagadijan and Dr. Will Marling. So a little about Mani is he's a software engineer by training. Mani started Shuffle Labs in 2010 with a commitment to providing quality solutions and exceptional services in the software technology arena. Mani started his tech career in Silicon Valley. Hello, that tells everybody something right there. And after 3 years, he transitioned to the association management software industry. He's serving AMSs and started Shuffle Labs. Great to have you here today, Mani. You want to say a little hello?
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Terry. Thanks for the introduction.
Sure thing. And his sidekick today is Dr. Will Marling, and he is the Vice President in Professional Services for Shuffle Labs, ShuffleExchange. And so before joining Shuffle Labs, Will spent nearly 30 years in the nonprofit world, ultimately ascending to chief executive leadership of a national nonprofit organization. Decades of his experience in the nonprofit arena has provided a rich archive of data points about the needs, challenges, and challenges of associations. With his association background, Will's goal is to bring cost-effective, competent, and reliable IT custom software solutions and services to his former colleagues in the nonprofit world. So like I mentioned, I am just thrilled to have these gentlemen both here today. Will, do you want to give a quick shout-out before we get started?
Yes, thank you, Terry. Greetings to all. We appreciate you joining us today.
Okay, cool. Okay, so let's get down to the meat of this conversation. So let's start with the title, Monty, the digital elephant in the room. Talk to me about why we named this webinar that, and talk to us about maybe some of the problems in the industry around integration right now.
Sure, Terry. The new software application acquisition and adoption in the small and medium-sized enterprises is skyrocketing. We did a survey recently, and we noted that a medium-sized association is carrying roughly about 70 software applications in their enterprise and the line of business application stack, and that's an average. The number varies anywhere between 40 to 120. In the past, even now, the association treated the association management system as the central data repository. There was a significant amount of effort put into centralize the data as part of the AMS, but it's getting harder and harder to keep up with that because of the growing number of applications. To some extent, the software as a service model application is the offender that caused this chaos. The marketing department goes to a trade show and see a new solution for the marketing automation. A few $100s a month, they just procure it and add it to the application stack. And, the same with the event registration group, the fundraising group, everyone. These are specialized software. There is a reason that people are getting excited about it and procuring them. But it's just bloating the application stack, and also it's causing issues from the data management and the centralization standpoint. The software as a service is a $155 billion market, and it will grow to up to $300 billion in 2020, as per Forrester's research. If you consider all of this, I believe the integration is the big digital elephant in the room.
Okay, thanks for that initiation to integrations right now. I know in our previous conversations you've mentioned that sometimes we're seeing organizations with 50 to 120 applications on average. Is that what you're finding with your clients as well?
That is right.
Wow, that's a lot of applications. I'm sure there are some people here on the line that could raise their hand and say they know their organization. They could probably rattle off of at least 30 applications, many of which I think they're hoping were connected in a meaningful way that was able to give them data feedback. So what are some of the real challenges and the different types or approaches to integrations out there right now, Monty?
Traditionally, there are three different approaches for an integration. The software development or a technical oriented. The traditional approach rather is to pay one of the software provider who is providing whichever the points that you are integrating with, pay the provider, and then or a systems integration company to build the integration. So they are called kind of tight integrations. It's essentially you just connect two endpoints for a predefined business case or a use case. There are a lot of technical challenges, and then also the reliability of sending a data across with utmost certainty is questionable, and also it's a slightly expensive process to do that. The second approach is, of course, the batch process, which everyone must be familiar with. This is very reliable method, and it would work for the most scenarios. but it's not real time. So if your systems are not connected in a real time, that means in some cases it could be broken workflows, it could be inefficient operation. In many cases, it's missed opportunities from the business standpoint. The third scenario is no integration at all. I mean, a lot of associations that we have seen that some of even the critical applications are not integrated. They were able to get by for the most part, but I think in the world of flooded SaaS and cloud applications, I'm sure it's very hard to avoid the integrations.
Okay, so that's a great explanation of the three kind of basic or traditional, not traditional, but kind of the classic examples of integration. You know, we have the traditional type, like you mentioned, which is technical and expensive. Then we have the batch, which it doesn't give you the real-time data. And then you have, like, organizations that are just saying none, right? So, you know, Monty talked a little bit about like the traditional or the tight integration being technical and expensive, but those are kind of like the hard costs. Talk to us a little bit about the softer side. Maybe what are some of the emotional aspects or the emotional challenges that we see with integrations and teams on the association side?
Oh, Terry, that's a great question to pose, because the soft side of this is what I call that emotional inertia, that when you look at the complexity that Monty's described, having sat in that chair personally, it's saying, do we have the energy to do this? Do we really have the capacity? Do we have the ability ourselves just to take on a huge project and manage it, oversee it, budget it? And so from my perspective, that's one of the big soft issues around integration. When folks start looking at it, they ask themselves, can I really do this? Do I have the ability to do this myself? And of course, that's an interesting barrier apart from all the challenges, the actual technical and financial commitments.
Yeah, I mean, in some of the conversations that I've had with several organizations around, of course, the AMS topic, the integration point sometimes can just be the heaviest lift in terms of, getting beyond just implementing the system by itself. After all of the cost it takes to even just implement a system, then the next step is looking at integration. Sometimes, we hear of teams just getting defeated and going to that last option, which is like no integration at all. But
that's right.
having talked to you guys, you have what I kind of have been sort of thinking in my mind is like more like the easy button. At least that's what it feels like, right? Let's talk about what your little known secret is. What is like the newest approach to integration? What is kind of like the fancy new tool out there that associations should be looking to help them overcome some of these integration challenges? Monty, I'll throw that one to you.
Sure, Terry. This is the term that's getting quite popular. The integration platform as a service. I'm sure everyone would have come across this term. The shorter version is it's popularly called as iPaaS. The iPaaS tools offers ability to build real-time integration using the API and a web services layer. You can connect to the data layer directly, but the popular implementations are on the API and the web services side. The iPaaS typically has a very powerful message transformation engine. It's generic enough to transform any kind of data formats. It has built-in data validation tools. It can do duplicate checks. There are notification services built into it in case of failure, and there is an extensive amount of analytics built into it. So one thing that I want to point out, though, is iPaaS is very different compared to its predecessors. Some of them are the enterprise service bus, the ESBs, and then there are middleware applications, and there are quite a bit of data integration tools that were built into the market. So those applications evolved in a non-cloud world, mostly for the larger enterprises to meet their specific integration needs. But the iPaaS is much more generic. It enables you, it can do whatever the data integration tools and the ESBs can do. On top of it, it can do a cloud-to-cloud integration, a cloud-to-on-premise integration, on-premise to on-premise, legacy to cloud. I mean, there are several variations that you can do. So because of that, it's a pretty new technology, but the adoption is skyrocketing. It's with a spectacular 61% growth in 2016, as per Gartner's research. The average number of applications and the APIs that the organization Gartner surveyed connect to an iPaaS more than doubled in 1 year. And then the primary reason people are turning into iPaaS is the ease of use, the fit to the need, and also a very short time to build integrations.
So what you're telling me really does make it sound so easy. I mean, when we talk a little bit, we talked about, like, yes, iPaaS does require the technical know-how, but it sounds like you're saying that it's so much less expensive and way more, you can get it live a lot faster. Is that a correct interpretation, Mani?
That is correct.
Okay, so that's music to many of our ears. So let's dig a little bit. Will, I know in some of our previous conversations, we've talked about a couple of the organizations that are doing some really has some built-in some efficiencies using this iPaaS integration. Can you talk to me a little bit about those case studies that you guys are working with?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Terry. We have one customer, the American Trucking Associations, which is a collection of trucking associations, literally, large groups of these associations, and they have a need for the idea of an AMS that then is connecting to a marketing platform that is as well connecting to a sales platform. Then it's also connecting to a subscription fulfillment platform. And so in this case, as you can imagine, with those 4 different platforms, the need for integration back and forth is significant, and it needs to happen in real time because the folks in the marketing department have specific needs and desires to see that the information that is happening in other areas, like with sales and with fulfillments, that they then want to capture that information in real time, use it then for marketing, because they know if somebody's purchased a product that is part of the association, that then from there, they can do targeted marketing and targeted sales potentially. Same with the sales platform. So this is a real use case for us. And in reality, what it says is, once you start doing integrations, you see the value of that it's going to bring, and then even value added. And many times for us, an association would want to expand those potentials. Once they see the opportunity, they want to expand it. And as Mani mentioned, if you took a kind of a tight integration approach, you end up with something that's built, and then somebody comes along and says, "Ooh, what about this?" Well, then suddenly that tight integration is limiting. But with the iPaaS approach, the integration platform as a service, what you have is the flexibility then to say, okay, let's just add that on. Let's just expand our functionality.
So what I'm hearing that you're saying is, like, they got to a point where they're like, woohoo, we have, we now have this reliable integration. And then they're like, wait, whoops, we forgot these two fields, or let's say a department is now more interested in having XYZ fields pushed out on a certain report. You're saying that it's a simple, like a few taps or a few clicks to get them to a point where they can now have those new fields integrated as well?
Well, I would be careful. I mean, I love the way you convey that. I don't want to oversimplify the demand because, the idea is that it is the ease of use is such a key issue for associations when they're talking about integration. It's one of the primary concerns that they have. How do we make this as simple as possible? And that's how I would frame it. There's still work to be done, of course, from their standpoint. Exactly how does our business logic work? How is this business model supposed to be implemented? But what I would say is, I mean, it's you can turn around tomorrow and nobody starts to cringe saying, we just finished the project yesterday and now you want to start on another one. It is, we're doing functionality, let's add to, let's expand. And of course, how we expand and the needs will dictate exactly how much more energy needs to go into that.
Gotcha. So what you're saying basically is that it's scalable, right? So I think that's kind of what it comes down to, is it's scalable.
Yes, thank you, Terry. That's a great way of saying all that I said in a very simple way. Thank you. Yeah, that's very good.
Yeah. So let me just remind everybody, we're getting close to, we're getting down to a 9-minute mark where we'll stop and we'll ask some questions. And we don't have anybody that has chimed in quite yet, but if you have a question or a thought or any additional commentary, please feel free to add it in the chat window or the chat field that's found if you just click on the chat icon at the top right of your page. So just a reminder on that. But so let's hear, Will, if you don't mind, if that case study it's familiar, but it's similar, but it's different in a lot of ways from MSCC and how they use iPaaS with their organization.
Yeah, it's basically an association management platform that they wanted to integrate with a learning management platform, and so it's simpler than the other one I described. That what we're experiencing very common. Associations have training protocols and they have training products that they want to offer, and they might want to implement a new learning management approach. And so in that context, that's exactly what we're doing, except they want their association management system to be the source of truth. So they want to start with that, and then they want to activate the learning management side of it, and then they want that information to go back if somebody completes the course and that kind of thing. So and that's a fairly common use case that we've observed, and I think it's going to continue to grow in terms of the needs and the opportunities.
Okay, very good. Cool. So thanks for sharing those real life use cases for iPaaS. And just so the audience knows, these aren't the only use cases that Shuffle Labs has. You can find about 8 other case studies if you go to ShuffleLabs.com. And I was able to filter through some of those pretty interesting, some really neat organizations that are doing some neat things with their integration. So check that out at ShuffleLabs.com. But so with that, before we get into the Q&A, we do have a couple really good questions that have come in. So thank you for those. We will definitely get to those. Let's talk, Monty, a little bit about how Shuffle Labs has developed a product using iPaaS. How does it work and what is it called? Just give us a quick little intel on what you've got going over there in your shop.
So we are a systems integration company. So we have developed several integrations as part of our services delivery, particularly for the association industry. We pretty much know the tools, the AMS, the learning management systems, the fundraising, event management systems, and the Salesforce, the whole gamut of things. So in the past, that's what we have been doing, transferring and transporting the data and connecting these systems, in a services model. And we, by doing this, particularly for the association industry, we learned the challenges and the culture of the association world thoroughly. So it's very natural for us to come up with an iPaaS platform. We are slightly late entrant into this market, but we managed to build a true iPaaS that would work for the cloud world. We have built several connectors that are very meaningful to the association industry. And as I pointed out, the three key reasons why the leadership are adopting to an iPaaS is the ease of use, the fitness for the purpose, and time to market. And these are exactly how we have built ShuffleExchange. Add to that the attractive price point, and even a small associations can integrate using our platform.
Okay, so thanks there for what I might call a modest plug. Monty or Will, I can't remember which one of you guys shared with me a really fabulous stat on our pre-webinar call, that you see a 70% integration time saved. Is that right? I mean, I jotted that down, but is that right?
That is correct. It is the way that we are solving the systems integration problem is by minimizing the time it takes to build a real-time integration. It reduces the time by 70%. Wow,
I mean that's just phenomenal. Okay, so thanks for sharing this, both Will and Monty. Do you have any, before we jump into questions, do you have any additional thoughts that you'd like to add to this conversation right now?
No, I think we are good. We are happy to answer some of the questions from the audience.
Okay, great. So you guys may be able to see some of these chats that have come in, but one of the questions from David is, how do you approach iPaaS with an AMS or other database that has poorly documented and often less than 100% reliable API or web services? So, Monty, how do you guys approach that?
No, that's a wonderful question. That's definitely a challenge that we see, but it's not. I wouldn't say this is pretty consistent across the industry. There are very few the products in the market are struggling with these kind of issues, unreliable APIs and poorly documented API documentation. This is the way that we are dealing with this is with our expertise in the association world. I mean, if it's a membership management system, we deal with like 15 of them roughly. The providers who have been in the systems integration business, especially in the association world, we are very familiar with those platforms. That's the only way that we are dealing with it. And then the reliability of the API, it is growing by the day. In fact, in one of the integration points where the company that we dealt with, the vendor was not offering APIs, and then they kind of, after a few conversations, they kind of realized how important it is to have these API layer enabled. So the industry is definitely going in that direction, and I believe the challenge that you are facing and you are pointing out is kind of temporary. And then also there are a lot of technical ways to handle this, and I'm more than happy to have a separate conversation on how we dealt with those kind of scenarios.
Yeah, that's we're seeing confirmation from David here in a comment that says that he realizes that the problem is subsiding as our softwares continue to improve. But one of the pieces of advice I give is like never ever partner with a new technology that doesn't have an already proven, let's put that in asterisks there, already proven API, reputable API. So definitely, at least moving forward, we can educate people until all the softwares have kind of met the market where it needs to be, we can, educate people that we need to be partnering with programs and technology systems that can help propel us to the future.
Absolutely.
So David also asks, how do you handle any necessary data transformation that has to take place between the integrated systems?
Terry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. How do you handle any necessary data transformation that has to take place between the integrated systems?
So there is most of the iPaaS, so in ShuffleExchange case, we built a custom message transformation engine. There are a lot of generic versions available in the market. There are commercial platforms that does the message transformation. For the product like ours, our needs are much more higher, and then it's a lot more demanding. So we wrote a transformation engine. So it can take I'm going slightly technical now. I mean, it can take an XML data and then convert it into a JSON object or a vice versa, or it can take a feed from a SQL statement and then convert it into a JSON, and then we would be able to make these transformations simply by using visual tools without writing any coding, and that's where we invested our time to build these transformation engines.
Okay, I kind of like that terminology that you just mentioned, transformation engine. Maybe that's what we need to be talking a little bit more about than just integration. It's like a transformation engine. I like that. So David also asked and wanted to make sure that I'm getting to these questions for him. We still have lots of time to get to the other questions, so that's a good thing. Keep them coming in, guys. When something breaks, haven't we just added a layer of complexity that now has to be managed along with the integrated systems?
In the world of integration, I'm sure you all would have dealt with this when you're doing the batch upload. If you are uploading 1,000 records, 50 of them are going to fail for various reasons. You got to go take a look at them, then fix whatever the data issue it's causing. You would be fixing them and then re-upload or whatever the mechanism that you use. The same applicable to an iPaaS platform as well. Especially in a real-time environment, you are not dealing with the bulk data sets. It's a smaller data sets. So how it's handled, it goes through a message queue. The queue, if all the validations are good, if everything goes well, there won't be anything left in the queue. This application the platform would take the data from the source and put it to the target. But if there is any failure, I mean, it could be a failure of not necessarily a data issue. It could be a problem. The APIs in the target could go down. The services could go down. So in that case, the message gets holded in the queue, in the message queue, and then it would make several attempts to process it. And when the target system is available, it will push through. There is definitely some level of human intervention would be needed for some of the exception situation. And that's applicable to any type of software application. So we definitely cannot deny that fact.
Okay, so it sounds like there are still obvious some challenges. So David, let us know if for some reason that your question hasn't been answered thoroughly, and we'll do the best we can to get any kind of clarification there. But I think that was a good response from Monty. So on the AMS side, Tim asks, on the AMS side, what are the prerequisites for a successful integration? Like, I think Tim's asking, what do we need to make sure we have kind of set in place on the AMS side so that we can have a successful integration with some of the other systems?
That's a very good question. The one of the challenge that what we have seen with the implementations that what we have done in the past, there is a technology called a webhook. It's essentially what it is. It's a trigger. Like if there is a change, if there is any kind of a change in the data set, the application needs a mechanism to notify to the outside world. For example, if a new customer record gets created in your AMS, and then if you intend to transfer that customer record into some other application, let's say to another CRM or a learning management system, that kind of a listener service or a webhook, those type of technologies are needed so that it can trigger and then let the iPaaS know that there is a change. Can you transfer this data? That is lagging predominantly across most of the AMS that we have worked with. So we are closely working with the AMS vendors to implement that, and some of them are very receptive to that idea, and some of them already started making those changes. In some cases, what we did, we wrote some kind of a custom layer to address that kind of a scenario, so that you are not dealing with that kind of a issue. But there are ways to deal with it. I mean, basically, we just need to do a pull from the iPaaS and then push it to the target. But that's slightly convoluted process. So that's one of the biggest challenge that we see from the real-time integration standpoint. The number two problem is the lack of APIs. The APIs for the specific scenario that you want to pull the data. It is, but that, as I mentioned earlier, that's definitely changing. I mean, the companies, the providers started to see that the API layer is being increasingly utilized by the third-party companies. So there is a lot of investment being made to make those changes and adjustments.
Okay. So from Jody, she asks, how do you handle the major and even minor updates to all the products? And how quickly do those updates actually make it through ShuffleExchange?
Excellent question. So there is a technology that we have implemented. It's called the referential models. So basically, what it does is, like, when there is a API change, our system monitor for the version changes on the API set. First of all, when we build a connection, we are building it for a particular version. But every time that API gets consumed, it looks for the signature changes. So it does know. But I'm talking about an extreme scenario where no one notified us that there is a change in it. But the process is when there is a version change in the source or a target, it's our responsibility to go the signature changes, particularly on the APIs, and then go through any of the new additions and then make those updates. Those changes are, it doesn't take a whole lot of time. It's a pretty straightforward process from switching from one version to another version.
Okay. Starting to get above my pay grade in some of this lingo, Monty. It's really good geek talk, though, and I know a lot of people that are on the line here. Some consultants even would know what a lot of this means. So we've got at least one other question here from Gordon, and then I actually have my own question about security. So for those of you that are really interested in hearing from Monty about what the real security is like on ShuffleExchange, stick with us. We've got about 5 minutes or so left. But Gordon asks, in a typical project, who handles the development of a data governance framework? Does that responsibility fall to the client, or do you guys maintain that responsibility?
So we have a different type of offerings. I mean, what we do is ours is a platform as a service. So we provide full access to the platform for our customers to build their connectors and manage the integration. So if they are doing it at that point, it's just it's all customers' responsibility to do that. But most of the packages that we offer has a decent amount of professional services time attached to it. So in the past, we have been part of that kind of a discussion, and then we provided our input and support throughout the process.
Okay, thanks for that. So it sounds like it could just go either way. Okay, so this is kind of like a last call for questions. I'm going to jump into my question that I have for you guys that I know the answer to, but I know that some of the attendees here on the webinar might have it as well, because security has been kind of all the rage these days, especially with in particular to what's going on in the news lately. So talk to us about how secure is ShuffleExchange really? Like what kind of actions have you guys taken on your staff to make sure that it's a secure product?
Absolutely, that's a great question, Terry. And the security is super critical in a product like this. For the most part, what we have done. Most of the security vulnerabilities can happen in two ways, right? Either when the data is on route and transfer through the wire, or when you are holding the information. So by design, we made all the effort not to hold or host any data. We just take it from the source and then move it to the target. The only time, and then when we capture some information to the log, we make sure that there is no PII get captured in that, any financial data get captured in that. So we make sure all of them. And then there is another piece where the message queue, the message queue itself is a independent the piece of application that's very well secured, because that's where the data flows through. And then, full SSL certification through the process, and every API call is a HTTPS call, and also to some extent we are relying on the providers, security levels as well, because we are consuming their APIs. We monitor them, and if there are any issues, if we think the call that we make to either side of the equation, if we feel that it's not secured properly, we do notify the vendor. From the authentication and access control standpoint within the platform, there is two levels of authentication built in from the call perspective, and if you are transferring to the data to the other end, there is a significant amount of security has been built in as well.
Okay, thanks for that. So I think that was a good question. We have a couple of others that have, or at least one here that's coming around. So what are you guys hosted on? Amazon Web Services, Azure?
Yes, our platform is currently running in Azure, and then there is one instance running in AWS as well. The integration component, the output of it's called the C core, the main engine, that can run anywhere. It can run behind the firewall also within your enterprise. But to answer your question, currently we are hosting at both Azure as well as in AWS.
Okay, thanks for that. I was guessing that would just be an easy one for you to rattle off. Good. So it's looking like we're down to just 1 minute. Just real quick, Monty, and you don't have to answer this directly. You can answer this in any capacity that you want. But Tim's wondering what a typical package costs between an AMS and then another platform, like an email campaign service or an LMS or an event management platform. What are we looking at in terms of this cost for ShuffleExchange between two platforms?
The two platforms are typically we call that as the per connection model. So we have done in various models. I mean, it would cost anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000 most likely. If I have to just to take a wild guess. There is a base package which starts at $18,500, which supports 5 connectors, and you pay for each additional connector, and that has 40 hours of professional services time attached to it, which means we will support at least a couple of your projects if you want to kind of if you think the learning curve is you have to go through the learning curve to adapt to the product. You can take our support within that time, but there are per connection models that we have implemented in the past, especially between NAMS and other marketing and even with the sales force that we have done quite a few. That's what the pricing would look like.
Okay, thank you. I know that's not a super level of detail, but at least it gives us a start as to what what price points we're looking at for the amount of service that we'd be getting and the integration points that we'd be getting. So that is actually super helpful. Thanks for sharing that, Monty. Okay, everyone, time has run out. We're actually officially over, but I know some of us could actually, talk at nauseum on some of this in this topic. So if you feel like just picking up the phone, Will is a great person, or Monty, great people to kind of just chat with around this conversation. I'm a big believer in what they're doing, so I appreciate the time that they have taken with me today. Monty and Will, thank you so much for delivering a message on this important topic. Again, everybody, if you want a recording, this will be available. Feel free to reach out to me. Check out the ReviewMyAMS blog for it in the coming days, or just feel free to reach out to Will. You've got his contact information there. And appreciate everybody joining us. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.